Happy new week. I hope you're doing well. I'm currently reading The Rise of Kyoshi. I am about a quarter of the way through, and I can't say that I'm very invested. I don't dislike it, but I definitely am not liking it like I thought I would. There's actually a note at the beginning of this book written by, I think it was by DiMartino. Let me double check. Yeah, it was DiMartino, which is one of the two showrunners of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender cartoon. So he wrote this foreword at the beginning, and in the foreword he essentially says that because prequels are hard to write because you already know where X character is going to end up, and you know, some of the mysticism, some of the mystery, some of the excitement of like what's going to happen is taken away when you do a prequel, which I don't fully agree. It depends on how it's done, but because of the choices that they made for this story, how they chose to start the story, I see why he felt the need to preface it with that. I was expecting out of this to see Kyoshi be determined as the next Avatar. Sure, we're gonna see that part, and then we'll do a time jump and like hang out with Kyoshi being the Avatar, protecting the world, and all of the things that made her a legend. And this book is the beginning, and as of where I am, is still it's still the beginning. It's still building up to her being revealed as the Avatar, and there's reasons why it's not quick. Like, there's circumstances around the situation that make them unsure of who the Avatar is entirely, and it's all like its own narrative. But at the end of the day, when you spend this long on a build-up for a reveal that we know going into it, it's not as interesting for me. Now, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, because I know that there are people that love this whole build-up and they aren't affected by the fact that the core mystery is something that we go into the book knowing that Kyoshi is the Avatar. So I'm not trying to speak for other people, I'm only speaking for myself. It definitely makes me not nearly as enthralled with the story. I understand why they did it this way, being able to establish Kyoshi's core group and her core friends that I assume will follow her throughout the majority of her life, as well as setting up for some trauma that will probably carry a lot of the story. All these things, I see why they made the decision that they made, but I also understand why they felt the need to preface this book with, we're aware that this is gonna throw some people because of the direction we chose to go. And it does for me. It definitely, I don't have as much interest in the beginning of this book as I really thought that I would, because of the storytelling route that they took. And that doesn't mean that it's a bad storytelling route by any means. It is an interesting story, and they're doing a good job of telling it, or the author that they commissioned, F.C. Yee, is doing a good job of telling the story that she worked with DiMartino to create. It only says DiMartino was in on this project, so I think he's the only one of the co-creators that worked specifically on the novels. I don't know. Anyway, the point is that I'm not trying to speak for other people, because I know a lot of people like the beginning of this book, but I'm really not that interested in it personally, and I'm really looking forward to, there's so little that we know about Kyoshi, and she is, of the reincarnations that we know, she is naturally one of the ones that I'm the most interested in. So I'm really excited to see her in action, and it's been a very, very, very slow build to that. I understand why, and it's still an interesting build, but it's just not gripping me. Okay, so I finished The Rise of Kyoshi, and I expected to really enjoy this. I didn't expect it to be a new favorite or anything, but I expected to really enjoy this. And I liked it, but I didn't love it, which did surprise me. So what I loved about it is the lore. We learned so much about Kyoshi's beginnings and what brought her to what little we know about her in the series, what brought her to that point. Like, for instance, her fans, her makeup, her headdress, like everything that she wears, we learn about the origins of that in this book, as well as like the origins of Kyoshi Island, and then even going out further beyond Kyoshi specifically, but just the avatar, just the world in this series as a whole, we learn so much about, and I loved that. The story itself, I can't say that I was consistently engaged with. There were times that I was really loving it. I think the action in this is written really, really well, and there were certain scenes of surprise or betrayal or what have you that were really engaging, and then there were sections that just weren't engaging at all. Or at least for me, there were sections that I just really didn't care to pick the book back up, which I pushed through because I wanted to learn more about the world, but I came away from it saying the nerd in me, the Avatar nerd in me, is satisfied. The reader in me, not as much. So yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it. I will probably read book 2, but I don't know when. I don't feel like I have to read book 2 right now. Changing tone drastically, Senlin Ascends. Oh my goodness, this book. I've only read part 1. I'm about to start part 2, and I just ordered book 1 and book 2 from Amazon. This is a library copy. I was reading from the library, annotating on my little stickies so that I'm not taking notes in the book itself, thinking this will be a nice library series to read. The library has all of them. I'm gonna enjoy this, but it's not gonna become a new favorite. Boy, oh boy, do I like this book. And in fact, I'm even, after part 1, considering disrupting my TBR and just launching right into book 2. My dad started the series last week, and he's already almost done with book 3. Anyway, according to my dad, I haven't even gotten into the good stuff. According to my dad, I'm still in the boring part of the book, and I'm engaged. I'm loving this. So Senlin Ascends, and here's a contradiction about me as a human. I'm very much a character-driven reader, and this is not so far a character book. This is very much the world is the most interesting thing about it, but it's so interesting. I love it. So I'm at the very beginning of the book, and I'm loving it, but I still have a lot of things I want to whine about. So, okay, so the premise of this is that there's this Tower of Babel that people are just drawn to, very drawn to, and each floor in this tower serves a different purpose and has a different code of chaos, as I would like to call it, that you have to work through, that you have to get through in order to ascend to the next floor. So this man, Senlin, and his wife, Manya? That's how I would like to say her name. I've never said it out loud. Marya. Why did I? Okay, cool. His wife, Marya, is there on their honeymoon, and they're going to the Tower of Babel. He's a scholar, he's a teacher, he's a headmaster, he's a he's a scholarly fella. And his favorite topic, his favorite subject to teach on is the Tower of Babel, because he finds it so fascinating, because so much has come from the Tower of Babel, but also because there's so much that we still don't know about it. And so their plan is to go to the Tower of Babel and honeymoon on the 3rd floor, which is like the spa area. But in the moment they arrive, Senlin's so stupid. So he has a guidebook. He is a professor that his favorite topic to teach is the Tower of Babel. And he has a guidebook that teaches him how to survive. Not that he thought that he was in danger, but you know. So there are very few rules that they've arrived here with. One, and probably the most important one, is don't split up. So what do upon the moment of arrival? His wife says, I'm gonna go buy some pretty undergarments for you. And he says, undergarments? Oh no, oh my stars, I can't see underwear. And so they split up. Sir! So anyway, there's a couple of instances like this here just in this very beginning of the chunk where it's just like, it's like, I love the concept of the tower. I love exploring these different floors and seeing the very unique kind of chaos. I love the mystery of, like, you meet 2 women that are tied together by a rope, and he's like, have you always tied yourself together? And they say, ever since we lost our sister, we do. And like, we lost her 3 years ago, and we lost her hair, and he lost his wife just now. But like, there's so many little things that are so mysterious and fascinating that like have me so excited to learn more about this tower. So many little nuggets that are dropped in there that I want to find the connections faster than I'm supposed to. And just like everything about this book, his writing is very good. Everything about this book I love. But Senlin, it's like this author, Josiah Bancroft. It's like Josiah Bancroft said, I have a story in mind and I have a world I want to explore, and the only way I can think to make this happen is to make my protagonist an idiot. So sorry. And I think he could have probably found another way. But even though Senlin is a dope, my dad says he'll get better. And even though I'm completely unattached to his wife, and his entire purpose in this book is to go find his missing wife, I'm completely unattached to her because I knew her for a single chapter, and her main character trait was I'm quirky. So like, it's not a character book, and I'm a character reader, but I also really, really love a well fleshed out, immersive, fascinating world. And this book is giving this to me on a level that I might disrupt my TBR for this series. Did I sell it to you? I'll tell you more about it later. I gotta go. I got the Senlin Ascends personal, this is now my copy, not library copy, as well as book 2, so I can dive into book 2 as quickly as I want to. I've now finished Senlin Ascends, and I do not feel quite as intensely that I must continue to book 2 immediately, so I will keep my TBR, and I'll be starting A Little Hatred next, and then from there I'll be going into Malazan book 4. So I'm keeping my TBR, but book 2 will be probably almost certainly read in January. So I finished Senlin Ascends, and I have so many thoughts about it. I'm tempted to do a spoiler review for it on, oh, this is my second channel, on this channel, so let me know if that's something that you're interested in, because I can definitely do that. It is interesting because I stand by everything I said about Senlin in the beginning of the book. I stand by everything I said about him, but I have gotten to know him a lot better now. And it's interesting because he's probably the most passive character I've read in a very long time. And I don't think that a passive character, a passive main character is inherently wrong. Or I think having a passive character, there's nothing wrong with that. However, I'm so used to reading in my fantasy novels characters that really think through their situations and find clever ways around obstacles rather than just seeing an obstacle sprout out from the ground and saying, okay, what rules do I need to follow in order to do what I'm told to do to get to my next destination? It's hard to explain. Usually I find characters that will cleverly maneuver their way through life and find a way to sidestep issues or find a way to work their way through issues. And with Senlin, whether it's something as simple as, hey, you have to pay an astronomical fee to get through this door or to get to this next section, and Senlin goes, oh, I guess I don't have money now, here's the fee. Or like, you have to participate in this obscene, ridiculous thing, abstract thing in order to move forward, then he's like, oh, all right, well, I guess I'm in a play now. The thing is, these obstacles are genuine. Like, if he refuses to pay the fee, he'll get punched in the gut and then the fee will be raised, which is what happened, and so then he pays the higher fee. And like, if he refuses to participate in the play, like, what's gonna happen. They're not gonna just let him through. So it's not like these are minor obstacles that he just goes along with. These are very real obstacles. The tower functions the way the tower functions, and you don't get to make your own rules here. But at the same time, he doesn't even try a lot of the time. At least in the first half of the book, he's just the most passive character I've read in a fantasy novel, especially as inventive of a fantasy novel as this one is, in a really long time. I'm just so used to characters saying, okay, yeah, I'll do that, and then finding a clever way to do something else. But he just, whatever obstacle arises, he says, okay, this is the way we're doing it now, at least in the beginning. In the second half of the novel, he really does start pushing back, start fighting against what the tower is as a whole, the mantra of the tower, the division that the tower causes, the isolation that the tower forces people into. He really starts to put his foot down and say, no, I'm not doing it this way. No, I don't accept this standard. And taking things into his own hands a lot. So we definitely get to see some good character development for Senlin, which was quite nice because I found Senlin to be not a very charming character in the beginning. Not in like he's not a likable character. It's not like that. It's just like he just wasn't much. But I think he does a really good job of being just like your average guy in a fantasy world. Like, he's a nerd. He is a guy who is aware of this tower, this incredible, amazing, mystical tower, and he wants to go visit it. And then he gets there and he's a little bit dumb. He's a little bit naive. He didn't see he didn't really understand what he was truly getting into, and then he's in way over his head and doesn't really know how to navigate it, and it navigates it exactly as a normal guy would and not as a fantasy character would, which makes him a little bit bland sometimes, but it also makes him at least a really unique perspective to be following in such a fantastical world. I still don't think the character work is incredibly strong in this series. I still don't really feel attached to very many people. There were betrayals and sacrifices and noble acts, like heroic acts. There were really bombastic scenes that we got that were very well written. I love the writing in this story, but I never really felt very attached to a single character, which made those scenes not quite all the way get there for me. But with the amount of character growth we got with Senlin from the beginning of the book to the end of the book, as well as, growth from side characters as well, has me hopeful that I'll get there with these characters as I continue on with the series. But I definitely think that the series is its strongest suits are in themes and in world building. I definitely think that world building is the strongest factor of this book, and then themes, I think he does a great job with that too. And then as far as characters, and really I don't think the plot is that important. I think there's a lot of coincidences that happen. There's a lot of it feels a little bit too much like, okay, author needed this to happen, so it happened. Plotting, while I would say this, the plot is Senlin lost his wife. Senlin must go through the floors of the tower to find wife. Senlin encounters obstacle after obstacle and task after task that he has to accomplish in order to be able to get to the next point in his ability to find his wife. That's the plot. I would say kind of just like hold all that loosely, because my battery died, but I don't want to just not have finished this video. Hold the plot loosely. I don't take it too seriously, because it is a bit coincidental. It is what it is. And I think the themes and the world building are the best factors in this book personally. I still think it was an excellent book, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I will absolutely be continuing on to book 2 soon. I also read the next 2 volumes of The Climber, which I've really, really enjoyed. There's been a big tonal shift. We had an author change, and I think I have another author change coming up again. I think there's 3 authors to the series total, but the tonal shift was amazing. Things have gotten so intense. There's been these subplots that have arisen that are so compelling and so succinct. Like, well, one particular subplot that arose that was so succinct and so poignant in just one volume. It began and ended in a single volume, and it was it was volume 3, was so good. I mean, just, got me perfectly. Then there was volume 4, which I actually didn't enjoy volume 4, because the subplot that arose in that was essentially, we gotta avoid these ladies that are throwing themselves at us because they're bad. No, no, no. Ladies are a distraction. Pretty ladies are a distraction, and they're gonna mess up our dreams. It's like this manga is almost shifting into an amazing homage, an amazing love letter to rock climbing, with like some subtle, we kind of sort of hate women a little bit, which I talked to my patrons and they said that that's not a theme that's going away, which at this point, the way it's done is honestly more funny to me than anything, because it's so ridiculous the way it's like shoehorned in there, this like subtle, women are the real baddies in our lives kind of like that narrative. It's like, it's so silly to me that it's making me laugh more than anything. So I'm gonna keep reading it. It might turn into a rant depending on how far it goes with this, but I mean, whatever. I'll let you know next week, because I will keep reading the series. I'm also probably going to be starting Yona soon, Yona of the Dawn, so that's something. And then we're going to start Vagabond soon as well, me and Philip. So lots of good stuff coming for the manga world, for me at least. But anyway, those are the books that I read this week. Thanks for hanging out with me for the vlog. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on my main channel, Tuesdays and Thursdays on this channel. Let me know what you read this week, and if you liked it, I'll see you again soon. Bye.